Shelli, bring us up to date on what's happening on the legislative front to reduce incarceration rates. I know you're on top of that issue.
Sure. First of all, I noticed that when everyone else came up, they got a kind of shout out about the numbers in their organization. So I thought I'd give you a quick update about the ACLU. I've been with us for 17 years. When I started, I was the 8th employee. I think we now have 34 employees across 3 offices, and we're proud to have an office in Grand Rapids. But I do want to introduce tonight one of our newest employees, Richard Griffin, and I can't see you, so I don't know where you are, but he is our newly hired, there he is back there, he's our newly hired field organizer who will be, and he will be here in Grand Rapids. So we're kind of putting people on the ground, and we're really happy to build out our staff this way. So the ACLU is working on a mass incarceration campaign that we call Smart Justice, because we believe that it's about time to get away from this tough on crime attitude and let's be smart on crime. And we talked about the incarceration rates, and we know that as a budget issue, it's horrible, but as a moral issue, it's even worse. We incarcerate far too many people, and most explicitly, we incarcerate far too many black and brown people. And this isn't just violent criminals. Like, we do, it's absolutely right that, you know, in terms of people who go in our prison time, you know, it's not the nonviolent offenders. But I do want to say that it's not just the number of people who go in, but it's how they stay in for a long time. We have terrible sentencing laws in Michigan, and we have, you know, our sentencing guidelines are very tough. You know, you have add-ons like felony firearm, you have habitual offender rules that end up putting people in prison for much, much longer than they should be. And we really have to think about incarceration in terms of punishment and public safety, first of all, and then second of all, rehabilitation. I mean, we don't want people to stay in prison all the time. We want them to have programming to allow them to move on with their lives. We know that recidivism rates, recidivism rates are lower as you get older anyway. When you're younger and you're more impulsive, your recidivism rates are naturally higher, even if you're not, even if you don't have a conviction. You know, your recidivism rates you tend to be higher that way. But as you get older, your recidivism rate falls. So we don't need to keep people in prison until they're 60, 70 years old. So we need to look at the back, you know, how long people stay in. And then in terms of, you know, how they go in, I think the prosecutor said, you know, it lumped in kind of with the violent offenders, criminal sexual conduct. Well, I don't know if you have ever looked at the breadth of CSC felonies that are in our laws. They are all not violent felonies. So we have this, you know, we have these huge swaths of statutes that make you a felon when they shouldn't be. We should, you know, lower some of those to misdemeanors, obviously lower even more to civil infractions, so we can begin to think about, you know, who needs to be incarcerated, how long do they need to be incarcerated, what's the best way, once they are incarcerated, to make sure that they come out and are able to participate in society, to have a job, to have a home. And most importantly, we have a systemic racism problem in in many areas, but in our incarceration system for sure. I mean, there is just no doubt that we lock up black and brown people at much greater rates than we do white people, and we have to face that, and we have to face it from the very beginning. That starts with elementary school. It starts with, you know, when they get arrested. It starts with how they're, you know, how they're assessed with bail, how they're assessed in the court, what kind of legal representation they have during their trials, and then what kind of actions they end up getting involved in once they're incarcerated that makes it harder for them to get out. And it's on every level, it's much, much worse for people of color, and we have to face that issue. So the ACLU Smart Justice campaign, which Richard will be working on, has 2 goals. One is to cut the incarceration rate in Michigan by 50%, and the other is to eliminate the racial disparities. And in terms of our legislative work, you know, there's some sentence reform, there's little tiny things that happen. There's an appetite for sentencing reform and for reform of our incarceration system in Lansing, but they, you know, can I say balls up here? They just don't happen to have the guts to actually pull the trigger because they're afraid of what voters are going to do. But there are a lot of legislators who really do want to attack this problem, but they need, you know, they need their supporters to let them know that it's okay to do that.